really don't remember that episode of Saved by the Bell where they had the oil spill and they were gonna
I've watched every episode.
Obviously not every episode.
Hey everyone, I'm Alice, this is Daniel. Welcome back to Play the Game HQ. We are going to cover The Spill.
Yes.
Which is a game from Smirk and Dagger. It's a cooperative game.
It is.
Well, we are working to rescue animals from this oil spill.
Yes, so obviously the spill refers to the oil that has spilled. So in the spill, we're going to be working together to mitigate the effects of the oil spill from the DeepWell 4 oil rig that is out in the middle of the ocean. It's right there.
I was going to say, that's good memory.
No, I read it right there. So it is a game of dropping dice into this oil rig dice tower. They are going to disperse randomly throughout the area. They're going to go into different quadrants. You're going to place the dice based on their number. If you get too many dice in a section, then it's going to cause an overflow or a spill out. That's bad. If oil gets onto an animal, the animals flip over and they become contaminated. That's bad. Your goal is to rescue animals, remove oil, sometimes just push the oil back into the bag, sometimes remove it completely. And the win conditions are random. There's a bunch of different cards with a bunch of different win conditions, but it's some mixture of that, of rescue a certain number of animals, rescue sets of animals, avoid bad things, get rid of oil, blah, 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 blah. That's the gist of the game. Now, we are going to try a little bit different format here and give you some very specific key takeaways from the game. I think some people call it structure.
Oh.
We're going to try some structure here. Let us know what you think of this. So we have our key takeaways Allison's going to jump into. Let us know what you think of this structured format and how you like that in the comments below. Right after you smash that like button and,
oh my gosh,
and poke the subscribe.
Okay, so our first key takeaway.
The bell. Hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
Yeah.
Our first key takeaway from the spill is that it's a difficult game.
Yes.
It's designed to be a difficult game, and you're going to lose more than you win.
Yep.
But it's cooperative.
It is.
And it doesn't ever leave you feeling hopeless.
Right.
Like, there's always this like, okay, well, I think we can do this. Come on, you guys, we got to work together.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see where you cannot get overwhelmed, even though you have good tension.
Yeah. There are those games, where it starts off real bad and you never feel like you have a handle on the game. This is not like that. This doesn't start off
bad, but it does start with the oil already spreading.
And it gets bad fast.
Yeah.
And it does get out of hand, but it's not like until you actually lose, you see a path to victory and you actually feel like you have a chance to win. But it is one that you are going to lose more than you're going to win. The flip side of that is that can be really difficult. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I actually like that. I like that feeling of the sense of pride and accomplishment of winning a game that is really hard to win.
I don't mind losing a
Yeah,
game.
but if you're playing with younger players or with players who just really hate to lose, it can be a little, like I could see that our kids don't have an issue with that, but I could see where you're going to have players who just feel punished by the game and don't enjoy that. We lost 5 or 6 times, then we finally won. So know your players, your players that you're playing with, especially with younger players. If you have players that have an issue with losing over and over and over, even in cooperative settings tend to mitigate that some because you're either winning together or losing together. But just know that you are going to lose more than you win.
So another thing that can be, another key takeaway is that it can feel repetitive because you're putting the dice in the dice tower, it's going out and spreading. You're having contaminated animals. You need to rescue the animals and push back the dice or remove the dice. So you have that repetitious feeling.
Yeah, and I would say that is not a factor of this specific game, but just of games that use action points, that use kind of that random drop, things like that. They can tend to feel repetitive. This game mitigates that by having a lot of different, like every person, every player has
You're different specialists.
Yeah, you have a specialist. You have a character that you're playing.
So you have special abilities, and then you also have awesome resource cards, which one of our specialists this last game allowed us to have an extra resource card
instead of 4.
And then there's also different win conditions.
Yes, there are a lot of different win conditions.
Different win condition cards.
There's
I believe.
3 levels. There may be 3 or 4 in each level, but there's a lot of different. So you're not.
And then you can do your oil.
And this
things that are different.
In this game, this last game we played was specifically like you have. Within the game, you have 4 action points to spend on your turn. You can spend one of those to remove an oil dice or to push it, where you put it back in the bag and it's going to be redrawn. Or you can spend 3 action points to actually remove it, where it's fully removed from the game. This last game we played,
We didn't do it
which
once.
we played on a level 3, so theoretically the hardest win condition, but that was the first win condition we played that didn't have removing oil, which is really expensive, as part of the win condition. The one we played before that, you had to remove 10 to win.
And one of them you have to remove 12.
Yeah, which completely goes, speaking to the repetitive nature or potential repetitive nature, that completely changed the way that we played.
It did.
Because we didn't remove any oil. We were focused on
Rescuing.
not having spillouts, on rescue animals, because our win condition for this last game was to save 4 contaminated animals, which again means that they have had an oil dice land on their space.
Right.
And then to have no more than 4 spillouts. A spillout is when it reaches 3 full. So when it fills up all 3 spaces, that becomes a spillout. You can get rid of that by removing or pushing dice. And then to save 4 full sets of marine animal life, there's 6 different types of animals. So you want to save 4 full sets of those.
Right.
So the different win conditions really, really do change how you play the game and how you approach.
And the fact that we played this 5 times before we could get a win, and the boys were still like, yeah, let's play again. That proves for families that are okay losing that it didn't feel repetitive enough and defeating enough that we didn't go back to it.
And
There's some
always,
games that you'll feel that way and don't hit the table because you couldn't win.
And I think that's part of the, like, it feels hopeful until it doesn't. Like, you always feel like you did really good and you were just a couple of decisions away from winning, at least in the games that we've played. So I think that really leans into the positive, like I want to go back, because it's like, man, if we had just done a couple things different versus we never had a leg up on it. Like we never felt like we were ahead of the game. This game always feels hopeful.
It does.
Yeah.
Now, something, because it is a cooperative game and we're all working together, it can be, especially for those players that are very strategic and can kind of see the next few turns, you can run into some quarterbacking, which we did run into with some of our younger players, where they were like, oh, you can do that. Well, then you need to take care of that. And then I'll take care of that.
Some of the older players at times, like we all struggle with that. I don't know. I know I did it.
But because it is action point based and not card based, it depends on the actions you can do. So you do have that.
Card based games can have a little less quarterbacking because at least you have even games like Castle Panic, where you typically play face up and everyone can see. You still have I have my hand of cards and I'm gonna do what I want with them. Because this is action point based, it can be really easy to see just treat all the boats as yours, and instead of suggesting hey, why don't you try, maybe don't lose sight of we need to do this. It can be like, hey, on your turn you really need to do this. And with well,
and it's hard as a parent too when you're trying to get your children into a game like this, not to go ahead and be like, okay, well, you see that now, do you see how you can do that, and letting them see their big picture and what they can do. Ask them first what you want to do, and then be like, well, that's good. Did you also see this? Let them, so that they don't feel quarterbacked as well.
And part of the benefit of playing games with anybody, not just younger kids, is building those critical thinking skills. So you need to fight that temptation to quarterback so they can see those things for themselves and do that.
I don't like the term quarterbacking. As someone who really loves football, it seems like such a negative thing. Yeah. And we need to come up with another. Is there another
backseat driver?
Okay, I can go with that one. I don't like the backseat driver. So we'll just, instead of quarterbacking, backseat driving. So. Another thing, one of our last key points is this does start great conversations. Yep. You have the conversations of after you lose a game and after you win, of what could we do better, what didn't we utilize this time, how did we win this game, that type of thing. But then also the theme of this allows you to talk about the fact that there's oil spills and there's animals, and in our economy we need oil.
Right now, so it's a necessary thing to drive the world that we live in, but it also has negative consequences, and we need to mitigate those. Something that they've done really cool with this game specifically is there's an entire Common Core approved lesson plan that goes along with it that you can find on their website. We'll leave links to that. But they put together a lesson plan to just create those conversations, not just around this game, but around the environmental impact of things like this. So it's just cool that they went that extra step and not only kind of start the conversations here, but also provide resources beyond the game to continue those in the classroom or at home, just however you want to do that. Yeah. Is that all of our key points?
That's all our key points we wrote down.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I don't mind a game that is difficult to win. No. It was really satisfying. When we finally won, it was really satisfying.
Especially this last one. It was like, whoa, what did we just do? Did we just win
Yeah.
like that? Especially, we upped the win condition to the highest level, and then we played on the ultimate. So we played ultimate. That was Peyton, our 9-year-old, was like, hey, you guys.
We've only played standard. Let's just ratchet it up to the end.
Let's just do it the hardest. And then we won. It was like, what? It was really cool. High fives all around. It was fun to experience that and just to have those type of memories with the family. And I love that this game was a part of that.
Yeah. Now, really quick, just to fill in any gaps in how to play that we missed, if you want a really concise how to play, it's divided into turns. On your turn, you have 4 action points. You are going to roll dice based on where you are on the spill out track. Anytime you have a spill out, it's going to increase this on the track and increase the number of dice that you roll on your turn. But starting off, again, everyone has their specialist that gives them an ability, but typically you're going to roll 3 dice until you move up. You drop those into the thingy.
It's going to be loud. It's going to be loud. Told you.
They go into one of the 4 quadrants. You put it on the number. If that number is full already or it fills up, you have a spill out when it fills up and it goes one direction. The risk engineer can change the direction. Play with the risk engineer. It's a really helpful character. Typically, I believe it goes clockwise, but we always play with the risk engineer who can, on any person's turn, change the direction that it goes. But the dice overflow. They go into the board. If it lands on a spot with an animal, they're contaminated and you flip them over. If you end your turn and you haven't either removed the dice or saved the animal, that animal goes to sick bay. We talked about that. That's bad. If an animal is already contaminated and a dice lands on them, they immediately go to sick bay. So those are the core mechanics. You have 4 action points to spend. It costs 1 action point to rescue a healthy animal, 2 action points to rescue a sick animal, 1 action point to push a dice back into the bag, and 3 action points to remove a dice from the game completely.
1 action to move up to 2 spaces.
There you go. 1 action to move 2 spaces. You'll see these orange little cube icons. Yeah, cube icons here. When you complete a row of that, either saving 1 of each animal or 3 dice, you get a cube. That lets you go onto one of these resource cards. You fill the spaces and you can use the resources. Those are all helpful. We're not going to read those. When you do the win conditions, you put a cube there. If at the end of your turn you have met all of the win conditions, then you win. If at the end of your turn you have met one of the losing conditions, then you lose. You don't get to meet all of them. You only have to meet one of them. There's weather dice. If you draw a weather dice, you drop it, and that punishes you in some way, like not being able to use action cards, not being able to use your special ability, or movement is reduced 1, or it costs extra AP to rescue animals.
But you do get one good thing.
Yes, one good thing. If it lands just right, you get 1 bonus AP to spend on your turn. And if you are just almost there to doing what you need to do and you need an extra action or 2, you can spend up to 2 extra action points on your turn, but that puts an extra bonus, an extra dice into the extra action pool space. Not that one. It would go there. I pulled out some lint. And the next player would need to roll that dice along with their 3, 4, 5, or 6 dice they already have to roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
6 spill outs at the end of your turn and you lose. 1 of each animal in sick bay and you lose. 3 of one animal in sick bay and you lose. And if you meet your win conditions, you win. Or if you get through all of the dice and you haven't lost yet, then you win. It's a really simple game to play. It's not a complicated rule set.
No, we did not rule check our first game. Like
Yeah.
we had
a couple. The back of the book is back of the book.
The back of the book
has references for all of the weather dice things and the play order. They're not individual reference cards because it's not complicated enough to need that. But every person does have their action point cost at the bottom of their card, which is really nice. But between the back of the book reference,
well, they have weather effects there too.
Yeah, weather effects are there.
Everything is really here out in the open, and it's very self-explanatory. But they have a great rule book if you needing to reference that.
Yeah. So I think
there are, I believe there's 8 different specialists. We have the rest of them back in the box, but and you can mix those up. Mix up your win conditions. Do your oil spill out different levels.
Yeah.
Because you get to, each player gets 2 of the reference cards to choose from at the very beginning.
Cards.
Sorry, the resource cards at the beginning of the game to choose. And so you typically would just have 4. If you've done one the last time and you didn't win it, pick a different kind of resource. See how that helps you next time. Like, there's ways to mix it up.
There's ways to mix it up and make it a different game each time, which is really cool. Because, again, a lot of these games can feel
really repetitive.
Very repetitive. This one does a good job of mitigating the factors that would otherwise feel very repetitive.
Yeah. So that is basically our take on the game and our key points. Again, we tried this differently. restructured, or what did you? Is that what you called
No,
it?
just structure in
Just
general.
structuring. So let us know if you like that take, having our key points at the beginning and then giving a thorough run through of the game towards the end. But that is the spill.
This is the spill from Smirk and Dagger. It's a fun game. It's a really, we love cooperative games.
We do. We're a big co-op. There's some families that don't like cooperative games. Yeah. We're a big, we like competitive games too, though. And also the artwork on the spill. We're not, this, you can't get the gorgeousness of it.
The dice tower is really cool.
It's really neat. You do break it down every time. It's okay. You break it down every time it fits in the box. Great. They do have dividers in the box. Yeah. That's about it.
Anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
I'm good.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, hanging out with us. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.